On today, we unveil another game based on the Quake 2 engine.
Kimberly, come in. Are you okay?
We got the power!
You are now listening to Retro Radio.
Welcome to another edition of Retro Radio, your only comprehensive online source for classic, arcade, and computer gaming emulation news and information. I'm Shane R. Monroe, your host. Welcome to the program. I promised a review of Space Ace DVD video some time ago, and unfortunately, I hadn't had the time to really do it justice. So with this review edition of Retro Radio, I'm going to give you the goods. Let's start off with a little info and history on animated Laserdisc games, namely Space Ace. You may also know of the other Laserdisc games like Dragon's Lair and Bear's Quest and several other ones. Space Ace is the second game cartooned by former Disney animator Don Bluth, most famous for his cartoon classics Secret of Nim, All Dogs Go to Heaven, An American Tale, and Land Before Time. Don Bluth also cartooned the first and more widely known Dragon's Lair animated Laserdisc game. The hardware portion of the game system was identical to Dragon's Lair and is most commonly found as a conversion kit from the Dragon's Lair cabinet. It is interesting to note, too, that in 1991, a conversion kit was released to convert the Leland Corporation's Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp machine into a Space Ace machine as well. Something I didn't know until I did a little research on it. Most of the Space Ace machines out there are conversions. A simple ROM change-out and, of course, a Laserdisc change-out is all that's required for Dragon's Lair to become Space Ace. Although there were indeed a handful of dedicated cabinets out there of Space Ace, they are far and few between. In fact, the only one I know of for sure that's in existence is in the Videotopia exhibit. I'd like to break for just a second to tell you about Videotopia. It's a traveling museum of gaming history. They have consoles, they have arcade games, and they actually have several different levels where you actually go and meet people and hear discussions and lectures, and you earn tokens, which you can then go to the top floor. And I haven't actually been, so I'm doing this all from what I've heard from other folks, where you can actually take these tokens and go up and play all of these classic games. Apparently they're all in mint condition, they're all collector-type condition, and Space Ace, an original cabinet, is actually supposed to be on display at Videotopia. Videotopia moves around every few months, and you can go to their website, videotopia.com, and they'll tell you where they're appearing next. Unfortunately, they've never appeared anywhere near me, or I'd have been there in a heartbeat. But let's carry on. Unlike its predecessor, Space Ace is a bit on the non-linear side. In other words, there are many ways to solve many of the different scenes that are in the game. Space Ace also had a slightly bigger budget, which is quite obvious by the audio portions of the game. The soundtrack is excellent, and there's quite a bit of speech and dialogue in the game, where Dragon's Lair was a bit more grunts, screams, moans, and sound effects. As you may have guessed, Space Ace is a space-themed interactive cartoon. Much of the time you play as Dexter, a whiny, lesser version of your part-time on-screen persona Ace, the pompous, often arrogant, but so much fun adult incarnation. Your bitchy girlfriend Kimberly has been abducted by the evil Commander Borf, whose voice, incidentally, is Don Bluth's, heavily synthesized. Another little piece of trivia that, again, I did not know until I did a little bit of research. Borf is trying to take over the Earth using a device that turns adults into children, the Infanto-Ray. Okay, a bit childish even by name, but it works for nonviolent protest groups. The slaughterous Doom generation had not yet been born. Your standard hero job, get the girl, take down the bad guy, save the world. Right? Pretty standard fare. In the original arcade game, you could choose a level of difficulty based on a rank to go through. Each one increases the number of scenes you had to go through to complete the game. Each increase in difficulty added more scenes for greater difficulty. I haven't seen a home version yet that does this, including this DVD video edition. As mentioned earlier, many of the scenes have alternate completion routes. Throughout the game, Dexter is often prompted by his glowing red watch, which really never gets explained why or anything, but hey, game maker's license, to energize, which temporarily turns him into Ace. In Ace form, you can lay some serious waste to enemies and obstacles. However, changing into Ace will often drastically increase the length of the scene that you have to play, hence the difficulty of getting through. All but the final energized scene can be skipped or bypassed by another route, read this as pretty much running your butt off as Dexter. I'll tell you some interesting trivia about the final staff fight and energizing within the real arcade game later on. Other scenes simply offer alternative routes without energizing, many of which can be very, very short and can dramatically shrink down your game time and maybe make the game a little easier for you. Now, for those of you who may have never seen any interactive cartoon Laserdisc game, let me just give you a quick scenario as how the game is played and the basic mechanics. This might lend some understanding why you can play this video game on your DVD player set-top box. Think of these games as long-running cartoons. You as the player help the on-screen persona continue on going on the right path, or paths, plural in Space Ace's case, by timely tapping your joystick, pushing the button on your DVD controller, in the proper direction for movement, and the button, the enter key on your DVD remote, for energizing, fighting, activating, etc. This isn't a fast action method, but more of a guiding kind of gaming system. For many, this is a bit on the boring side. Should you forget to make a move at the right time, or move and fire at the wrong time or direction, you're skipped over to a death sequence that will show your untimely demise, and you're depleted of a life. Use up all your lives, and the game is over. That's enough about game mechanics. Chances are, if you're listening to this show, you have an idea what Space Ace is about. Now let's get on to the DVD version of Space Ace. In the vast previous years of popularity of these games, there have been many, many remakes for the home console and computer market. Some of the early ones were odd platformer puzzle versions, like for the C64 and Apple II. You know, basically the name and the theme were all that made over to the 8-bit versions that it shared with its arcade counterparts, and gradually moved up the food chain. The Amiga version came out. It was the first version that actually looked and played like the real game, using the built-in Amiga graphics, and it came on like 6 floppy disks. Didn't even have close to the original set of scenes, but it had a good collection of them, and they played faithfully. Unfortunately, the floppy disks were badly copy protected, and ejecting one while the drive light was on was certain death to these uncopyable disks. Next on the docket came the Real Magic version for the PC. Now, this is Dragon's Lair for this Real Magic version, which required an early MPEG board to play it. The Real Magic was an MPEG board. You might even remember it from the old days. Followed by the Amiga-esque version, which was basically reanimated for the PC. The MPEG version was actual video, but hardly anyone owned the Real Magic board, so it was kind of a wash. The PC version was DOS-based, and believe you me, it did not like Windows. It is responsible to note that a couple of other mediums of Space Ace and Dragon's Lair did come out, namely for the 3DO from, Crystal Dynamics maybe, made the 3DO, and the Philips CDI. Now, the Philips CDI version was so good, compliments of the optional full-motion video card that you could get for it, that I nearly bought one just for Space Ace. Even though the Amiga CD32 game console had an optional full-motion video card, there were only about 13,000 of them made, and it wasn't popular enough to warrant a translation. Finally, and only recently, our buddies at Digital Leisure recreated the Dragon's Lair and Space Ace games in full Windows 95-98 glory, using high-quality video and audio. While it was good, it just isn't Laserdisc quality. Now, both games are available on DVD, both ROM and video, with Dragon's Lair 2 on the way. First, let me assure you that the quality of the video and sound on the Space Ace DVD is fantastic, as you would expect from a DVD. You can play the game standard style using your DVD remote, or you can watch the entire game unfold before your eyes. Now, again, you're only going to see one path through the entire game, and usually that's the greatest path, including energizing the ace, etc. You won't see a lot of the alternate paths, which can actually be a whole lot more interesting than the regular paths through the game. As with the Dragon's Lair DVD reviewed in an earlier edition of Retro Radio, there's a nice bonus collection of interviews and media clips regarding Space Ace, including more footage from my hero Don Bluth and Rick Dyer. The menu system is pretty much standard, and as before, you play the game with your DVD remote control unit. We're going to pass some screenshots across here while the show's going on, so you might want to take a look at that. And why don't we play a clip right now of one of the interviews with Don Bluth.
Its next project is already in the planning stage. It's to be called Space Ace.
Space Ace, we should A lot of kids do like to play the space games in the arcade, so why not produce a game that has the same kind of things we used to see in Star Wars, or any of the big space pictures. Put all the sound we can it, give them all of that opulent visual look, give a story, and this space, I think, is even more exciting game because now the Laserdisc doesn't just jump to the scene. The Laserdisc can now explore different avenues. We have two fan worlds in Space Ace. You can go in this direction or that direction. If you play the game in one direction, you still have a chance to go back and play it again in another direction and see more stuff. So it's like exploring.
In Dragon's Lair, the only bad thing I had to say about the DVD version was that it hiccups on each move, actually freezing the screen about a half a second each time you move. In some cases, it feels like you're watching the screen frozen more than moving. But I'm sorry to say that the undocumented feature is still there in Space Ace, and the design team does attribute the problem with DVD players, not their code. This also works in this DVD video version. If you try to play it on a PC DVD-ROM, you will also see the same hiccups. But in the case of the one I looked at, it actually had a blackout period, which is actually a little bit closer to the original arcade game. Now, whether or not the actual DVD-ROM version will do the same thing, I can't comment on because I haven't gotten to review that one yet. However, this time around, there is an option that you can turn on that allows a full 2 seconds between moves, giving you a bit more breathing room, and you can bet that helps out a lot on some of your DVD players. Dragon's Lair was often very difficult to get a move off because of the time frame of the moves. This definitely helps a lot. Now, the Dragon's Lair DVD video got some guff from some of the real diehard fans because many of the death scenes were omitted. For instance, in the growing wall room in the arcade game, you could sit there without jumping through the wall, and Dirk would get gassed and killed. However, in the DVD version, you simply got halfway stuck through the wall while it was being built. And I can understand the diehard collector types that really want every bit of video footage. And again, there was a couple of problems in the game. Like my own problems with the game was where some of the scenes had an alternative route in Dragon's Lair, like being able to jump to the first fire rope before the ledge starts pulling away when you're in the fire rope scene. You weren't able to take those alternate routes, and you had to deal with the game sequentially as it was. For those of you who are diehard Space Ace fans, you're probably gasping and coughing right now, knowing how many alternate routes there were in the original Space Ace. How does that work in the Space Ace DVD-ROM? I'm happy to say you're going to be thrilled to know that Space Ace, thus far that I can see, has included all the alternate routes and the non-energizing scenes. That's right. In most cases, you do not have to energize during the game. You can fight or run as the lowly Dexter, often shaving off a lot of moves and a lot of complicated gameplay. They get hats off to this because I was really afraid they were going to leave it off. That's what made Space Ace so much more fun than Dragon's Lair, was the alternative moves you could make. I guess this is as good a time as any to tell you about the staff fight at the end. I'm assuming most of you have at least seen the ending of Space Ace, and I know if you got the DVD, you'd watch it all the way through without playing it, so you'd know pretty much what the final scene was. I'm not going to tell you what the very final ending sequence is. I'm just going to tell you about the beginning of the ending sequence, if that makes any sense. This is something that the arcade game would allow you to do, but no home version to date that I have seen would allow you to. In the final scene, Kimberly is snagged back away from you. Yeah, you'll see. It's kind of a rat race. You get her for a while, then she goes away. You get her for a while, she goes away. And you must defeat Borf in a hand-to-hand combat with lightning staffs. And yes, it is as hard as it sounds, believe me. I haven't even got there with the DVD player yet. Anyway, as you approach the scene, and this music is really cranked up. This has mood music. Let me just stop for a minute, because this is an important aspect of Space Ace. In the early days of video gaming, there was just music. There was a soundtrack, or there was not a soundtrack. They'd play music, or there wouldn't be music. Somewhere in the Wing Commander games, they came out with what I call mood music. They had a little buzzword name for it. I call it mood music. When you're flying around in space and nothing's going on, it just played some standard, droll backing music. But as soon as you were about ready to go into battle, the music would start building and building. When you fired off like your first shot, the music just started going, and it got you all pumped up, and you were ready to go. And Dragon's Lair didn't do that. Dragon's Lair was a little bit sparse on that. But Space Ace, yeah. When something good's going to happen, or you're getting ready to energize, or something, the music will just pump up and catch you. And this mood music is really, really, to me, what set Space Ace aside from Dragon's Lair, even though they're basically the same type of game. Anyway, as you approach the ending scene, they start playing this really cool build-up music, and Borf is basically saying, now you're going to deal with me, and Dexter tells you to energize. And if you energize, you jump forward, you grab the staff, and you start going to town. And Borf's a big guy. You probably wouldn't want to fight him as Dexter anyway. Well, as stupid as it seems, you really can fight him for a short period of time as Dexter. And why would this be important? Well, people seem to like trivia and stuff from the past on these shows, so I'm going to fill you in on a little bit of Space Ace history. Both Space Ace and Dragon's Lair, a lot of people have forgotten, actually had a scoreboard. It actually had LED light-up scoreboards that actually would give you a score based on how you completed a move or which route you took, et cetera, et cetera. And once you finish the game, and you can make it all the way through, and you could probably make it all the way through with your eyes shut, it became a battle to see who could get the highest score based on taking all the alternative routes and doing all the moves timely enough to get yourself more points. Well, once we actually could finish the entire game on ace level, we could go through every single scene with as long as possible. It got to the point where we were at a stalemate because none of us could break this top score. You know, it was kind of a fixed score. You know, we got to the point where it's like no one could be declared the best Space Ace player. Well, we started finding ways of scoring extra points. So what we would do is we would find the longest scene in the game, and maybe one of my listeners can let me know which scene it is that's worth the most points. And I think it's actually the final scene. You would play through the entire scene until you were one step away from finishing the scene, and then you get killed. So you had to play the scene over again. Hence, you would double the points you made, then triple the points while you were doing it on your last life. So it sounds really kookball, but come on, I was a teenager, and teenagers do stupid things like that. But we were basically trying to inch out a few more points, and it got to the point one time where it's like, gee, I don't know what happened if we didn't energize against Borf. And surprisingly enough, Dexter jumps over, grabs the staff, and is ready to go to town. Borf hits him, and he flies back, and he begs you to energize him again. And then, again, Borf either kicks you or hits you or something and knocks you out of the way, and you jump onto this ledge, and then Dexter once again begs you to energize. On this last time, if you do not energize, you will die. But if you energize, you start the scene over again, energized as Ace. So you get to milk a few more points. Now, obviously, the DVD version, you don't have a point level. But it's interesting to see something that most people didn't even realize you could do, because why would you even think about not energizing when you're going to go against Borf? So that's your small bit of trivia for this show. Actually, a lot of trivia. As a straight DVD title, the audio and video quality are superb. The menus are more of your standard variety. But the extra interviews, which are very similar to the Dragon's Lair DVD, if you've gotten that or you saw that on the last show, and you got to see a clip already, are very much worth the money of the DVD, especially if you're a heavy Blue fan or a Rick Dyer fan, or if you're just a historian and you're into that sort of thing, you learn a lot. In summary, let's go ahead and wrap this up. This is supposed to be a short review. This puppy's a great step up from the original Dragon's Lair DVD in terms of conversion. The alternate routes are there. The non-energized routes are there. The problem with the moves are solved. Again, you're probably not going to see all the deaths. That's all I'm going to say for you purists out there that want the DVD because you want every single scene off the Laserdisc. I don't think you're going to find all the deaths in there. But other than that, the alternate routes, can't moan about that. Everything looks great. All in all, it's a great follow-up. Digital Leisure should get a blessing, a clap on the back, something for producing such a good game. Now, what's going to be very interesting is to see how they pull off Dragon's Lair 2. Now, Dragon's Lair 2 is in production. I don't have a release date yet, but they'll send me an advanced copy, and hopefully I'll get a little more on the ball with the review than I did on this one. And Dragon's Lair 2, I don't know how many of you played it, but I'll take a few moments here to tell you a little bit about it. Dragon's Lair 2 is very time-oriented, obviously, time warp. You go through a bunch of different scenes. in one scene, you're actually in Alice in Wonderland. It's funny to see Dirk in full armor with a dress on. And there's some really neat things. You actually fight Beethoven's cat while he's playing. It's great. I mean, it's really cool. But Dragon's Lair 2 is really fast. I mean, move, 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 move. I think they were trying to get a little more action into it. It'll be interesting to see how Digital Leisure manages to pull that off. Before I close everything up, I want to tell you about a contest that's coming up. And I don't know if this is going to be funny for the people who are listening to this as an archive a year from now. There's a contest coming up that the Monroe World is putting together called the Classic Gaming Gauntlet. And the details are sketchy. I don't know exactly what the players are going to do to qualify as a contestant. But what I can tell you right now is I'm gathering the prizes for it. And right now our current grand prize, until somebody beats it, if possible, is a number 2 control set, a big arcade controller game set from CustomArcade.com. These guys are being mega generous. They're hooking us up. It's like $300 for this controller set. Going to go to one of our Classic Gaming Gauntlet winners. We also got the good folks over at Stick-It, the arcade controller that I'm currently using that you've heard in the past. We do good reviews on. Ron and I played Deluxe Galaga on it. Truly cool. That's going to be our next prize. I'm hoping to get at least 1 or 2 more controllers from like Zipstick and Hot Rod to cough up. I don't think they'd want to miss all the publicity that the other guys are going to get. Our good folks here at Digital Leisure that make Space Ace are going to offer up a software of your choice, the winner's choice. If you win that prize in the Classic Gaming Gauntlet, your choice of a Dragon's Lair DVD or DVD-ROM, Space Ace DVD or DVD-ROM, the deluxe pack, the Dragon's Lair Deluxe Pack, that has the 32-bit versions of Dragon's Lair 2, and Space Ace, for those of you without DVD. And we've also got a great prize package I just found out from Intellivision Lives, the folks that put out the Intellivision emulator on CD. They're going to be giving away a prize pack like a T-shirt and a mug and a copy, of course, of Intellivision Lives. I heard back from Buckner and Garcia. I think they're going to be able to donate, so we're going to be able to give away a copy or 2 of their CD, the Pac-Man Fever soundtrack. Monroe World, of course, will be giving away a handful of Retro Radio CD-ROMs. And I'm hoping to get through to some other folks like Hasbro and some of the other folks that are into the classic gaming remakes. There's also a surprise, and I can't promise anything because I haven't even gotten an initial contact yet, but I'll give you the inside scoop because you're listening to the show. I've got a chance to contact Rick Dyer, the guy who made the hardware for Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. I've got a contact means of getting a hold of him. Now, as you may or may not know, Rick Dyer and Don Bluth are currently working on the PC version of Dragon's Lair 3D, a brand new installment in the Dragon's Lair chapter. Everybody's really excited about it. It sounds really cool. Sort of a Tomb Raider meets Dragon's Lair. And I just found out they're even going to make console versions of it. So get your PlayStations fired up. I'm going to hopefully get a hold of Rick Dyer. I'm going to try to see if I can convince him to donate a piece of production art, even a sketching or something that maybe Don Bluth had sketched on in a meeting or something, and maybe get him to autograph it and maybe give that away as one of the prizes. Of course, there's no guarantees on that. I haven't even got a hold of him, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this to be like the coolest contest out there. And you're not going to have to be a rocket scientist, okay, to get in on this. You're going to have to run a gauntlet, but with a little persistence, you'll be in the running. And with all these prizes, we're going to have a lot of winners. So you're definitely going to want to keep in on that. We'll have details on Monroe World. Probably the contest will start December 15th. That way you guys can play and do your gauntlet over the holidays when everyone gets a little time off of work. And you have maybe a little time to go spend behind the computer. Hopefully we'll have that running for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll draw the winners. And sometime in January, before the tax man gets you, we'll try to get you out, get these prizes out to the winners. Once again, this is Shane R. Monroe from Retro Radio with the Space Ace DVD review edition. Thanks to the folks at DigitalLeisure.com for providing me with the DVD. The great folks over there. Please visit their website. Give them your support. Until next time on the next show, keep it retro.